Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 106. Models Memory is a show about nothing and it is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. How could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. The EonsOfBattle team, Nick and I, just got back from Adepticon, and it was so much fun. We saw tons of you guys there. Thank you for everybody who came and said hi. It was super fun. We bought way too much stuff, and I got to experience one of my favorite things of all time, which is buying a miniature, taking it home, and then getting it completely finished that day. It is an amazing feeling. I highly recommend. At Adepticon, I bought a whole bunch of stuff for Fallout Wasteland Warfare by Modifius. It's a really fun skirmish game set in the world of Fallout, and in my opinion, set in the world of Fallout New Vegas. In fact, they actually do have most of the things from Fallout New Vegas. And I got Securitrons. Securitrons are the funny little blue robot police, army, yes men, cowboys that rule the wasteland. And I got them. I opened up that box. I cleaned up the miniatures. I gave them a little bath in my ultrasonic cleaner to get all the gunk off. And then I painted them and they were done that day. And I don't know if you guys do this, but this is definitely something that I do. But as soon as I finish a miniature, like my newest finished miniature, they tend to just follow me around the house. Like I'm doing the dishes, they're sitting there on the counter. Taking a little pee, they're sitting there on the counter. Tucking myself into bed, they're over there on the nightstand, just hanging out, because I love to just sit there and admire them. And it's a good feeling. The miniatures for Fallout Wasteland Warfare are really nice. They're well sculpted. They're a really nice size. These guys are a little bigger because they're just physically giant robots in the game. But also they come on sculpted bases, which is really nice, because as much as I love basing, if I don't have to do the basing and then they just look really good, it is a huge plus. Like Necromunda does that. Not very many games though do, because I think it is a lot of work. And with the Fallout minis, they all are on unique bases. So like these two guys have different bases from one another, and every other of the miniatures that I purchased all have different bases that are just little cookie cutters of parts of the wasteland. Fallout Wasteland Warfare is set mostly in Fallout 4, but they do have tons of stuff for New Vegas. And so, Securitrons. And then the next evening, I actually painted up some other Fallout miniatures. I got some Brahmin. The Brahmin are the absolute best. I love them. I've got the little weird 2-headed cows. Are these good in the game? I don't know. They probably shouldn't be, because they're just like non-playable NPCs that just wander around a bit, and you can shoot them to get like 0.1 XP that does nothing for you. But you wanted to try out that new weapon that you found in the vault, so you go ahead and do it, so that you maybe you crouch so that you can get that maximum HP damage. But yeah, really excited for Fallout Wasteland Warfare, and the models, they're really nice. Like usually, I really like video games, but the sad thing about video games is that they're over when you're not playing the video game. Like I have beautiful Minecraft worlds and really cool Terraria houses and all of this, every single ship unlocked for the game FTL. And it's so fun and exciting, but as soon as the game is turned off, it's all gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Arguably, it doesn't exist while you're playing the game. But with Fallout Wasteland Warfare, I can have Fallout New Vegas all over my desk. I've got Veronica, my favorite companion from the game. I need to get her painted up. I bought basically everything for Fallout New Vegas, and I'm really excited. Usually my go-to, like just taking it easy, having a fun painting evening, is Star Wars Legion, because I have so much Star Wars Legion to get through. But I think for a little while, I might switch to some Fallout Wasteland Warfare, because these miniatures didn't take that long to paint up. I think the Brahmin took about 3 hours, and the Securitrons took about 3 hours from start to finish. So really excited to have these things. But really, the thing to talk about is Warhammer 40k 10th edition. I have never played Warhammer 40k 9th edition, but I did play a lot of 8th. And 8th is pretty much the same as 9th. 9th is just more. I love Warhammer 40k 8th edition, especially early 8th edition with the indexes. I knew every single rule. I knew everything about every army. And it was just so much fun to play. I loved the abandoning of the to hit to wound chart. Like, you do memorize it if you play enough, but the new system of just knowing if your dice is high or low, and that's if you hit or not, is just so much cleaner and better. Like, I remember feeling embarrassed when I would have to explain the rules to people for the first time. So did my orcs hit your Space Marines? Okay, well, you have a strength 4 and I have a toughness of 5. So we go look at the chart, and then we play Battleship, and you find where the X marks the spot, and that is the number of you have to get on your dice, plus any higher, in order to get, like, it was just kind of obnoxious. I get it worked, and there are some other games that have a similar mechanic, like Bushido and stuff, that it can work. It's a decent mechanic, but it is a little verbose. It's a little annoyingly crunchy. And Games Workshop is saying that this new edition is going to be easier, but not simpler, which is kind of what they said for every single edition of Warhammer ever. But I think it bodes well. I would like to see the rules be easy, and you can definitely have simple rules with a ton of complexity. I mean, X-Wing's rules are as easy as you can get. Move, shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot. You activate based on how big the number on your card says. Like, really, really simple. But that complexity comes in with your cards and your upgrades and your abilities, you know? I think you can do all of these different maneuvers, and all of those little strategies become the complexity. And so, even if you're really good, you'll always be able to beat a new person. Although there is something to be said for games working at any skill level. I think a game that I love is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. You can be the greatest player in the entire world of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, but if an 11-year-old comes around the corner with the noob tube, you die instantly. It's lovely. And games always should be fun for newbies, beginners, tryhards, veterans, and pro players. Like, it should always be fun for everybody. But taking a look at the new trailer for 10th edition, which Games Workshop actually left the comments on. I believe they left the comments on for the 9th edition trailer too. It just seems to be something that they do to maybe generate a little extra hype. And I read through some of the comments, and it seemed like it was, for the vast majority of the comments were very, very positive. But I saw the 10th edition trailer from the back of a huge hall at Adepticon, and I actually got to see it a little bit early because they actually started the preview for us at Adepticon at 8 o'clock, where the actual thing goes live for everybody at 10 o'clock. Although there was so much vamping and extra stuff going on that I actually didn't get to see the video really until like 9:40. So when I shot Models of Memories last week, literally as I was saying the words, the information was actually hitting the Warhammer community page. And so I made a couple of mistakes. Actually, I only really one mistake. I thought that I saw an old box dread, but actually it was a Redemptor Dreadnought with identical versions of the old box knot weapons, the twin las cannon and the missile launchers, bolted to the side, which is kind of an interesting design mechanic, because what we've gotten with the Redemptor Dreadnought is very similar to the Contemptor Dreadnoughts, where the weapons kind of are on the ends of their arms. But apparently, for some weapons, they're not going to be on the ends of their arms. They're just going to be like bolted right onto their sides, like the more classic Dreadnoughts. So that was one little oopsie. Apparently, we will not be seeing the return of the classic box knot, at least probably. I could still see them bringing back the box knot in some capacity and just having it be an alternate Dreadnought, because Games Workshop has sold like 25 plastic Dreadnoughts over the course of the 36 years of Warhammer 40k. So it'd be weird to just sweep them all away in favor of just the Contemptor Dreadnoughts and its different variants. And Dreadnoughts have so many variants that it's totally feasible just to have your classic box knot around the Contemptor Dreadnoughts. So I would bet one day we will see a box knot kit that is just all of the old box knots shoved into one. It'll come with like the ironclad bits. It'll might come with like some Furioso Dreadnought bits. It'll like all of it will just be put into one kit, and it'll probably be upscaled a little bit to stand a little bit more proudly next to the Primaris Redemptor Dreadnoughts, which I do like. I like the Primaris Redemptor Dreadnought. The only thing I don't love about it is it's kind of somewhat humanly proportioned, which makes it look a little bit awkward, because you could drive a semi-truck between its legs, which kind of makes it look like a baby, where the classic box knot just have these weird tripod legs, or not tripod, like there's not 3 legs, but these weird mechanical strut legs that look very robot and like awful. Like a human being has been reduced to something that does not look at all human, where the Redemptor Dreadnought sort of has human-y features, but the pot belly, the really far apart legs, and the somewhat small arms in comparison to their really chunky body, just something about it is a little bit off. If you don't glue on some of the armor like I did and like play around with some of its features, I think you can get something that's pretty darn perfect to what a Dreadnought should be. But yeah, I was a little sad that it doesn't look like we're going to be getting a brand new old school box Dread anytime soon. But there was a lot of really interesting stuff in that trailer. First and foremost, new Terminators. And this is interesting for two reasons. Number one, Terminators are the greatest thing of all time, and they're perfect in every single way, and I love them more than anything. So that is the most exciting thing about them. I love them so much. They're so great. I own 20, and all of us, I'm gonna buy 20 more because now the new ones are just a little bit better than the old ones because their legs are better proportioned and they stand a little bit taller. Their posing is really, really good. And they don't have the pig nose Stormbolter anymore. They actually have two barrels coming out of the Stormbolter, which is, it's a little thing, but it's really, really nice because the old pig nose bolter, I wasn't a huge fan. But what's really interesting about these new Terminators is they are Primaris and Classic Space Marine, and I think it might hint at where Games Workshop is going to go with the Space Marines in general, because Space Marines are in a weird place, where they are essentially two different armies, and never the two shall meet. You've got Primaris on one side, and you've got Classic Space Marine on the other, and they all have their own different units and different abilities and different vehicles that are not cross-compatible in any way for some reason, even though Centurion warsuits can fit inside a Land Raider. Apparently, Primaris Space Marines just can't possibly fit. They'll always bump their head. Apparently, it's no good, even though Centurion suits are like the size of cars. But I'm hopeful, because now Primaris and normal Marines are able to be inside of Terminator armor, that they're gonna kind of just get rid of the line in between the two, and they're gonna let them be completely cross-compatible. Which means I might finally get to take my Primaris Marines and drop pods. Games Workshop, let Primaris Marines go in drop pods. I will buy so many drop pods. It's like the thing of Space Marines. Like all of the other armies, like the Imperial Guard and the Sisters, they come down and drop ships, they set up their deployment zones, they put up barricades and trenches, and they get hunkered in. But Space Marines are like Alpha Strike units. Bam! Drop pod just slams right into the middle of the entire Orc army. Those doors open up and they just spew out, just firing their bolters and special weapons wildly. That is what makes Space Marines so awesome. And they can survive. They can survive a drop from orbit, and that's just step one. Step one is taking 2 billion Gs slamming directly into the ground, and that doesn't even phase them. Like, they're probably just sipping their juice boxes and getting ready for the fight during that unbelievable plummet to the ground. It's so awesome. And that's like, bring it back. Also, maybe make a new drop pod kit, because I've heard tons of horror stories about the drop pod kit, that it doesn't really fit together perfectly and you kind of have to fight it a little bit to get it actually built. But I want these things cross-compatible. And it's very easy for Games Workshop just to say, oh yeah, normal Marines and Primaris can fit in the Terminator armor, because it doesn't matter. I mean, Primaris and normal Marines are almost the exact same thing anyway. Primaris Space Marines are a little bit taller, but also Space Marines vary in height kind of a lot. Like Space Wolves tend to be a little bit taller. Raven Guard tend to be a little bit shorter. Like there's a lot of height variety already in the Space Marines because they're sort of human. So it's not that big a deal just to have Space Marines and Primaris be the same thing. They definitely should do it. And some things in the trailer point to that idea a little bit. In one of the scenes of the trailer, we see a group of Intercessor Space Marines walking by, and one of the Intercessors has a combi Melta, which is very interesting. That is something that we don't see a lot with the Primaris Space Marines. There's been a couple of combi weapons on Sergeants and Captains, but we haven't seen them in the normal squads, and that's something that you used to be able to do. The thing of the Space Marines, like the one big irksome point with Primaris Space Marines that people really latched onto, is 10 Intercessors are 10 Intercessors. You can take a Power Fist or a Chainsword on the Captain, but you got 10 normal dudes all with the same bolt gun, where with the classic Tactical Marines, you could take one special weapon, one heavy weapon, and you could usually take a combi weapon on the Sergeant. And usually that was a pretty good thing to do. Usually, in 6th edition, you spammed Plasma, in 7th edition, you spammed Grav. In 8th edition, In 8th edition, it was actually fairly balanced, the different things you could take. Sometimes the missile launcher was better, sometimes the las cannon was better for different operations. I always took the las cannon because I play Black Templar, and so I would always not take like tanks and anti-armor things because I wanted to max out on the number of bodies on the field. And so it was really nice to have a couple of las cannons here and there just to help pop some of my opponent's heavier units. Not that I ever won, but that was my logic back in the day. But it is interesting to see a bog standard Space Marine who does have a little Crux Terminatus emblem on his backpack, which could point to veteran Space Marines, which are already a thing in terms of rules, but they're not a thing necessarily in terms of miniatures. However, the new trailer is all about Tyranids versus the Ultramarines, and the Ultramarines famously fought High Fleet Behemoth, and they have a unit based around that idea called the Tyrannic War Veterans. And so we could see Tyrannic War Veterans. My hope would be we're going to see Space Marine Veterans, which is just a Space Marine squad that blurs the line between Intercessors and Tactical Marines, and it comes with options. And then hopefully there'll be an upgrade sprue to turn them into the Tyrannic War Veterans so that Ultramarines can have a little something special. But all Space Marine chapters get access to Space Marine Veterans, which is just basically having the old Tactical Marine squad back, but with the better equipment and just better sizes and better miniatures that comes with Primaris Space Marines. Also in the trailer, we also see a combi plasma gun held by a normal Intercessor, who does appear to be wearing the veteran armor for Ultramarines. They've got the white trim, and then they've got the crux on their shoulder. So really, really excited for hopefully seeing a little bit more variety in the Space Marines. Early on in the trailer, we see an Intercessor with a Pyre Blaster, which is currently only available to the Black Templar. We can take a Pyre Blaster in our Crusade squad. The only problem is that the Crusade squad is really kitted out for close combat, and so the Pyre Blaster doesn't really help super much in that loadout, and so it's not often taken. But I could definitely see it being a nice thing to have in a squad of troopers, but not 10 troopers with the Pyre Blasters. Games Workshop, it was kind of cool with the Hell Blasters, just an entire squad of plasma. It was kind of cool then. Like Dark Angels players just lost their minds because it's what they do. But it's too much. It's too much to have 10 plasma guns, 10 missile launchers, 10 Pyre Blasters. Like, this isn't Horus Heresy where it's always Space Marines versus Space Marines. It's Space Marines versus a lot of different things. 10 flamethrowers is just going to be able to wipe like orcs or guardsmen or anything with like a 4 or lower toughness. And you're just going to get destroyed at range because it just doesn't work. It's fun. It's more interesting to have like one flamethrower to hopefully tip the balance in your favor as opposed to 10 flamers that have to go they hunt down targets that are only good to be shot at with 10 flamethrowers. Like, take my idea for the Tyrannic War Veterans or just Space Marine Veterans in general. Just bring back a little bit of the flavor with the old Tactical Marine squad by allowing some combi weapons. Maybe a heavy weapon. I would love a heavy weapon too. But yeah, Pyre Blaster, interesting to see from the trailer. And it's interesting to see it on a normal Intercessor, not a Black Templar Intercessor. And another thing that points me in the direction of the Tyrannic War Veterans is this sergeant who the trailer seems to follow along. It's a sergeant in the slimming armor of the Incursors and Eliminators. And he has some like Tyranidy gubbins glued to one of his shoulders, and he has a combi flamethrower. Almost certainly, I think this is going to be a unique sergeant that's going to come in the new box that is going to be the Ultramarines versus the Tyranids, which I think is going to be a real winner of an edition box. I mean, I don't think there's been a bad edition box for a Games Workshop edition, but I think it'll be really good. I mean, I might buy two because I really want those new gaunts. I want a Tyranid army, and I want all of this new cool stuff like Tyrannic War Veterans, but without the Ultramarine stuff in my Black Templar army. I want it so bad, and it'll be so cool. And I would expect a lot of the things that we're seeing in this trailer are just literally going to be the box, because I can already see the Warhammer community article saying, hey, did you really enjoy the new cinematic trailer for Warhammer 40k 10th edition? Well, this box comes with that. It comes with all of that stuff that you really liked in the trailer. I would expect it might not come with the Contemptor Dreadnought and the Screamer Crusher Carnifex, because those might be like the next step purchase because they're humongous miniatures. And usually the starter sets come with a lot of infantry because it's fun to have a lot of infantry. You know, when when the kiddos are putting all their models together, it's more fun to get more things than a couple of big things and a smattering of little things. But this new Sergeant, I would expect to be unique to that box and unique to the Ultramarines. Because the Ultramarines, you know, they barely get anything. I mean, Games Workshop never really shows off the Ultramarines. You never see anything painted blue. It's pretty uncommon. It would be nice to see the Ultramarines finally get a little bit of love from Games Workshop. And I think a unique Sergeant just for them would be really cool to see. Maybe it could be like Sergeant Tellion, the unique scout guy for the Ultramarines. Maybe they could bring him back. Like, he's finally progressed from being a Space Marine scout into being a full Space Marine. I know he was a full Space Marine before, and he was just operating with the scouts because that was what he was best used with. But I could definitely see that happening for the Ultramarines. And, you know, Games Workshop, not a big fan of making Space Marine lieutenants and captains. You hardly ever see them. Yes, the Space Marines get everything all the time, always, but I like the Space Marines, so it's still really fun for me. Another thing we saw in the trailer is a new Librarian in Terminator armor and a new Captain in Terminator armor, which is humongous thumbs up. I mean, obviously, when I get my box, I'm definitely going to have to give away or sell the Space Marine Librarian because I am a Black Templar player, and my Black Templar army will never be tainted with the filth of a Psyker. Even if it is an Imperium Psyker, we don't believe in any of that. No magical nonsense in our army. In fact, we don't like Psykers so much that we have special abilities and stratagems just to try to help turn off other people's Psykers. We don't like magic so much that our guys are slightly anti-magic. They have a magical anti-magic aura around them that turns off magic. It's lovely. I love the Black Templar. They're the greatest. They're the meanest Space Marines. They're the evilest Space Marines. They're sort of the good guys, but not really. They would do anything the Imperium says, even if it's awful and evil. We arrested Captain Titus at the end of Space Marine 1, the video game. I love the Black Templar so much. They're the greatest. I get why they are not the feature of this new launch box, because the Ultramarines are just a good pick. Most people's favorite color is blue. Boring usually works well. I mean, this box is the Terran versus the Zerg from StarCraft, which I think is going to get a lot of people into Warhammer 40k, seeing the trailer, seeing the miniatures, just understanding immediately what's going on. Humans in power armor versus evil, monstrous bug aliens. It's very, very readable. It's very, very interesting. The previous box, Ultramarines versus Death Guard, was kind of interesting. The Death Guard have actually become kind of a fan favorite faction in 40k, even though before they were kind of very, very niche. A lot of the Chaos was very, very niche, because Chaos is sort of still in a weird spot, but they're climbing out of it. Where Space Marines, you just change the color and all of a sudden they're a completely different flavor of Space Marine. Chaos is a little bit tricky in that a lot of the different Chaos factions are very, very different from one another. You have the Thousand Suns, you have the Angron, like big angry corn boys. You've got the Slaneshi, whatever they're doing with Slanesh, and then you've got Nurgle. And Nurgle getting a full range revamp and some of the best models that Games Workshop has ever made has definitely jumped them into like the next tier of popularity, which I really hope comes to Tyranids, being in part of a launch box, all new miniatures, new gaunts is really, really exciting. I've built a bunch of gaunts and they're nice. They're really nice. I actually have a memory from my childhood of going into like a KB Toys or somewhere. I don't even know where I was. And I saw the old Games Workshop like boxes where it was painted artwork, and I was like, the Tyranid look really, really cool. These buggy bug things, and my mom was very, very like was really good in not letting me get it because I would not have been able to put any of those things together. But the gaunts have been around for like 20 years, and they're really, really bad, and they could desperately use a refresh, and it is very exciting to see them get that refresh. And I think Tyranid are popular, but they're not as popular. Like, Orcs are definitely the top tier popularity of Xenos. And then Tyranid maybe are underneath. Eldar is like way at the bottom, mingling with Dark Eldar and Azyanari or whatever's going on with that. Oh my gosh, and then Harlequins are under that. Gene Stealer Cult, they're weird. Tournament players love Gene Stealer Cult because they're hard to play, but they can play really, really well if you're playing at a very, very high level. So I hear the name often, but I don't see a lot of Gene Stealer Cult units on like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. They seem a little bit more boutique, a little bit more specialized. Where I think the Tyranid are just a good, solid bugs. They work. They don't have a lot of lore because they're literally a hive mind, a single mega organism that eats planets. And so it's hard to have like lore because they don't want anything. They just want to get bigger. Like they're a bacteria. And so it's hard to have lore, but some people, like everybody has a little something special that they like. Like I really like the Space Marines for the way over the top drama of them, and that they are, peace or not peace, absolutely not peace, but like justice and honor and duty. Like every different faction has their own little slice of fiction that they appeal to, and the Tyranids are really, really good for people who like organisms and nature and the cosmic horror. They definitely have a really, really big appeal, and I really hope that this new launch box does great things for the Tyranids. They showed off a lot of new stuff. They showed off new biovores for just a split second. Like you really have to scrub through the video to notice the biovores, because a lot of Tyranids kind of look very, very similar. We got some new a new Shrike or a Shrike Prime, Tyranid Warrior Prime with like wings and giant claws. New Lictors. I think you only see like the eyeball of the Lictor and the daggery claws for just a split second, but it was really, really cool to see. And there was technically 3 new Tyranid bugs shown off. One is a new version of the Screamer Crusher Carnifex, or the Screamer Killer Carnifex from way back in 2nd edition 40k, which is like kind of one of the ugliest models Games Workshop ever made, but it's so endearingly ugly that people absolutely adore it. And they go for like big money on eBay. So I think it's a really good choice for it to come back. And then we see like these feeder organisms, these Tyranid biomorphs that are just like sucking up Space Marines. And so they could have some really interesting rules, because one big thing that a lot of war games don't really take advantage of is not every single unit has to be a war unit, or their primary role doesn't have to be killing stuff real good. Like you can have other things going on. Like maybe every single time your Tyranids kill a unit, you put down like a flesh token. And then if your feeder organisms can get to the flesh token, you get a point, or you get something, or maybe you can give a buff to a nearby unit. Like you can have things that aren't necessarily only about killing, because 40k and Games Workshop games in general are probably a little bit too killy. It makes the games kind of really, really fun when they're playing really, really good, but it can make them a little bit repetitive when you play over and over and over, and the only thing you're really focused on is killing or standing in certain places for the objectives. It can be a little where I think because movement is the thing that makes miniatures games, things that aren't about killing and maybe about doing other things would be a really, really fun addition to the game. This new launch box and the new rules that they've teased for 10th edition definitely have me really, really excited. The most interesting one is probably the new Combat Patrol game mode, which arguably was already a game mode, because I forget the name of it, but 500 point 40k is a game mode. And all of the Combat Patrol boxes are 500 points, although not even close to balanced against each other, where apparently the new ones will be. Although it'll probably work a little bit better. Games Workshop has tried to have different game modes in the past, and I really like the idea of different game modes. It just never really worked. Like in 8th edition, they came out with a system called Power Play, where it's incredibly simplified actually putting your army together, because you would just pay like between 4 and 10 power for each faction, and then you just take it. Where instead of calculating every single point, and these orcs all have sluggas, which cost 1 point to add, and then I'm going to put a big Shuda, which adds 3 points, and you have to do all of that math for every single unit in your entire army. Every single player in the world ignored it, because it wasn't what we were all used to with the point systems, but I could see actual different modes of play for Warhammer 40k being really, really interesting. I could see a game mode that harkens back to Rogue Trader, when you you would almost need 3 people to play the game, 2 people to be players and 1 person to be the DM, to kind of control the flow of the story being told, because it was almost a role-playing game. I mean, Games Workshop had just stopped making D&D, like they were the distributor for D&D back in the day. And so I could actually see like a Rogue Trader version of 40k that's not really even about war, but about being a role-playing game set in this universe to be a really interesting mode of play. But maybe Games Workshop should or shouldn't do that, because it would also crack their player base down the middle, and you have to deal with, oh, do you want to play Warhammer? Sure. What version of Warhammer do you play? I play this one. Oh, I play the other one. Do you want to come onto my side? Should I go play with your game? Like, it is a little bit awkward, but the new 10th edition looks really, really exciting. I'm really, really hopeful I'll get the rules day one. I'll read all the rules day one, and hopefully there'll be simple but not easy, easy but not simple enough that I can explain it really well to my friends and get them to actually play the game of Warhammer 40k with me. Because I love Kill Team. Kill Team is just easy enough to explain to people, but for Warhammer 40k is it's a different tier. It is a tricky game to play. I mean, it's basically a video game, but you do all the math, which to some people is really appealing, but not to everybody, and it should be fun for everybody. You know what is really fun for everybody? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, we have a new set of STL terrain every single month. This month, we have the Starship Bridge, a grimdark starship interior, complete with a captain's chair and stained glass windows. We also make one extra episode of Eons of Battle every single week where we take a look at our viewers' miniatures and give them some ideas and critiques of how to improve their painting. And we have a new tier where you can get your name on one of my Black Templar Space Marines and you can join the Immortal Crusade. I am very pumped for Warhammer 40k 10th edition. I have probably close to 12,000 points of Black Templar right now, and so I'm very excited to read every single rule available to me and get my Black Templar back on the gaming table. Thanks for watching.